Welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm Katie T from Katie T's Home, and today I'm gonna walk you through my spice drawer refresh. And I've had it for about a year now, the spice drawer. And I gotta tell you, it is such an upgrade from having the rotating spice rack. And if you have the rotating spice rack or you have a cabinet just filled with random spices, then this video is for you because I'm gonna tell you why I prefer having a spice drawer. And then I'm also gonna share some, little secrets on how to get spices for an affordable cost. So stay tuned for that, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to check out my online storefronts. I have some mealtime digital downloads for you to check out. And without further ado, let's jump in. So before we get started, I do want to just quickly make note that if you like the labels on my spice jars, the vinyl Cricut cutouts, then you can get a downloadable for free on my blog post that I did for this. You do need to have a Cricut, and for those that don't know what a Cricut is, I have a full guide on everything you need to know before purchasing one. I'll put a link to that in the description below. But I went out of my way and I cleared the background, so then that way uploading these in the Cricut design space would be a lot easier and a lot less tedious having to take out the negative space. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Again, I'll put a link in the description below. But yeah, just to, jump right in, I want to talk about ways to get spices at an affordable cost. And there are two main ways that I find most effective. The first one is to buy in bulk. And I mean, this makes a lot of sense because if you're going out of your way to put all the spices in a fancy small container and it's coming from a small container, you're essentially creating more work for yourself. Like, it looks nice and that's, the benefit, but if you're buying in bulk, it makes a little bit more sense in regards to you're not going to have a whole drawer filled with big containers of spices. So buying in bulk is number one. And the two places that I get my spices in bulk are BJ's and Amazon, which it's kind of surprising to me that Amazon does have spices, but they do, and they're a lot more affordable than getting them at the grocery store, and you get more for it. So highly recommend that. BJ's is good for the classic spices like oregano, garlic powder, onion powder, whereas Amazon is more so those specialty spices like, I don't know, chili powder or fennel, like those types of spices. So if you have the space in your home, definitely buy in bulk. You will be saving yourself money on spices in the long run. And the next way to save money for spices is to dry them out yourself. And I tried this in 3 different ways. The first way that I tried drying out the spices was the traditional way of just hanging them out for a couple of weeks. And I'm not gonna lie, I was amazed from this process. I was a little worried because I was like, ooh, my herbs are looking a little brown, like maybe I didn't do it right. But honestly, after I cut it up and put them in the jars, the ones that I did were more green than the ones that I bought from the store. So clearly I must have done something right, or maybe the store is just, I don't know, cheaping out on us. But that's the first method. It takes like no time to just bundle up your herbs and then hang them upside down. I guess the biggest catch is you just need an area to do that, and then you have to wait a couple weeks. So if you don't have time, then that's probably not the best option. But I mean, it's definitely the cheapest, especially if you're getting your herbs from like a local garden or your own garden. And the reason why you hang them upside down too, just on a side note, is so that all the oils can fall into the leaves, creating more of that green, or leaving more of the green color in the herbs themselves. So if you're wondering why you hang them upside down, that is the reason. But if you don't have time on your side, then the other two alternatives, which are much quicker, are to put the herbs in a dehydrator, or you can also just put them in the microwave. And I tried both. The microwave is definitely a lot quicker. I put my herbs in the dehydrator. I have a air fryer Ninja, and if you're interested in it, I'll put a link in the description below. And it has a dehydrator setting, and this setting is pretty cool because if I just want to dehydrate a little bit of whatever, then I have that opportunity to do that. So I put the herbs in at 115, and it ended up being 5 hours. I started with 2, but then I kept adding on to it for the specific herbs that I did. But I'll be honest, the chives needed more time, and I was in a pinch for time, so I ended up putting that one in the microwave as well, just because there's more water content in the chives. But I also used the microwave for the thyme, and part of the reason why I did that is because I didn't want to put the thyme on the dehydrator rack because I was afraid that the leaves, the petals being so small, they would have fell through, especially after being dehydrated, which did happen to the basil that I did. They shriveled up and became a lot smaller. So keep that in mind when you're dehydrating for yourself, that you'll definitely need more herbs than you planned on, because it shrivels up so much, and each one's a little different depending on the size and the water content. But just be mindful that you might not get nearly as much as you are setting out to get. But I mean, it's totally worth it in the long run to do it yourself. And if you decide to just put it in the microwave, I put it in the microwave for a minute and then just added 30 seconds if that particular herb needed a little bit more. So that was obviously the quickest option. I mean, I know it's putting it in a microwave. It's not exactly ideal, but it was kind of convenient. So that's obviously, a factor in the process in the long run of it all. But yeah, so moving on to why I like to have my spices in a drawer. And keep in mind, the kitchen, it's pretty decent size. I wouldn't say it's a large kitchen, but I wouldn't say it's a small kitchen. But I mean, as many of you can imagine or in the same boat, drawer space is so important. Like, to sacrifice a section just for some spices, some of you might be questioning, is it really worth it? And I'm here to tell you, yes, it is. It's completely worth it. And I'm saying this for a couple different reasons. One, I'm coming from the mindset of having one of those rotating spice racks that belong on top of a countertop. And it was great in the beginning, but I soon found that it wasn't for me. And it wasn't for me for a couple of reasons. The first, which I could have helped, but it wouldn't have been as convenient, was because the spice rack, the rotating one, was near my stove. And so if I was cooking and oil splattered, then it would get on the spice rack. And so I would have to clean it like every single day or every single time I cooked. And I don't know, it was more work than what it was worth. And the sad part about it all is if it didn't get cleaned enough, then dust would settle on it and it just get that gross, like, I don't know, oily, like, feeling to it. And it just wasn't great. And then to top it all off, the next reason is because it was a lot harder to clean because there are so many nooks and crannies in the spice rack itself. My particular one was metal, so it kind of gave that streaky, outer metal part, and you had to be very particular with how you cleaned it, as opposed to having these wooden spice racks in the drawer, which are super simple to clean. And honestly, like it can't get streaky because it is made out of wood. And then the last reason why it's so much more worth it is because if you have things on your countertop that are near the rotating spice rack, then when you go to rotate it, if it's too close, then it gets in the way. And where it was at the time in my kitchen was near, like on the other side of our entryway door. And that's where we had phone chargers and, you know, like a place for our keys. And it just always got in the way. It just wasn't an efficient use of the space. So I ended up clearing out multiple drawers to kind of make room. And it's so worth it. It's so worth having the space in a drawer for all the spices. They don't get oily. I don't have to clean it nearly as often. And the rest of the stuff that I had in the drawers, while they might be in a smaller drawer, it's completely worth it. And some of you coming from the position of having spices in a cabinet, I will say this. It's so convenient to have the drawers lower so you can see it all versus a cabinet which is a little higher, so then you have to go digging. And then you run the risk of knocking things over, and it's just not an efficient way to do your cooking. It's not. And if that's the space that you're working with, or if that's what you like, then by all means, you do you. But for me personally, the drawer is definitely the way to go. But yeah, if that doesn't convince you, then, you know, you do you again. And if it does, then let me know. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your transition in your spice drawer. I don't even know, like life, I guess. I don't know. But another thing too that I forgot to mention when filling your spices with different herbs and what have you is you'd be amazed at how many spices that you can just make from home. Like I made a mesquite seasoning and it was basically just brown sugar was the base of it. I mean, I'll put the full recipe in the details below, but I mean, like most of it was just brown sugar and paprika. And of course, knowing that, I'm like, oh, it's no wonder I really like, you know, this kind of seasoning. But, you know, even mustard powder, I know it's a very particular one and I do use it. And all that is just ground up mustard seed. And I know some of you might be thinking like, who has that in their kitchen? Like, okay, I do. I have it in my kitchen. Part of the reason is because I want to make more things from home, mustard being one of them. Plus, I do plan on making pickles at some point this weekend or maybe even next weekend. So mustard seed is something that I have on hand. But yeah, like just grind that up and you have mustard powder. Like it saved me from having to go and get one more thing. You know, I'm being more efficient with the food that I have and leveraging it and getting the most out of it. So if there's something that you think you can make, just look it up, see if you can find a recipe, and I'm sure there is. I mean, even like Italian seasoning is just a blend of like parsley and different herbs. So it might be so much more worth it for you to just make it yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, if you have a Cricut and you want these labels, check out my blog post and that will be there for you to use at your convenience. Hit that subscribe button and comment below. I am a new content creator for YouTube and I would love your feedback. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video and I will see you again next time. Bye!